Hello and welcome to Wrestling Trope Alert, the channel where we analyze professional wrestling. If this is your first time here, help the channel by clicking the subscribe button. Today we are going back to 2005 and we are going to talk about the time that Stone Cold Steve Austin almost came out of retirement to wrestle announcer Jonathan Coachman on the Taboo Tuesday pay-per-view, and the resulting weird chain of events that saw Batista taking the place of Stone Cold and the return of Vader and Goldust to the WWE. On the 3rd of October 2005 episode of Monday Night Raw, the WWE will return their flagship show to their original broadcast partner, the USA Network, in a special edition of the show dubbed WWE Homecoming. Wrestling Trope Alert, there's two things that the WWE does when they want to spike the ratings. The first one is to capitalize on nostalgia and wheel out the legends from yesteryear. This usually leads to some poor wrestler on the active roster getting buried by the legends, and this time Rob Conway would be the victim, a role that Heath Slater and The Ascension would later take on.
I'm the one-man band, baby! The Vader bomb!
And the second Wrestling Trope Alert thing the WWE does when they want to spike the ratings is to have the greatest of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, cut a promo in the ring and deliver his finishing move to whoever crosses his path.
That's ever helped me! Stunner! Austin stuns the boss!
At Raw Homecoming, that's exactly what is going to happen. In the middle of the Raw broadcast, we catch up with Vince McMahon in the ring cutting a promo about being back on the USA Network. Soon after, the rattlesnake Stone Cold Steve Austin would interrupt the Vince McMahon promo, and eventually, after both men reminisce about the good old days of the Attitude Era, Stone Cold would give a stunner to his arch nemesis Vince McMahon.
That right.
Then the circle of McMahon nepotism would continue with Shane McMahon and the billion-dollar princess Stephanie McMahon would be next. Stephanie would manage to get some words in, and Stone Cold is in a flirty kind of mood, and Stone Cold wants a kiss from Stephanie, leading to Stephanie slapping the shit out of Stone Cold and paying for that transgression dearly.
Glad you did.
Then Linda McMahon, the matriarch of the family, would show up. Two things worry the WWE Universe at this moment. One is Stone Cold Steve Austin going to hurt this 57-year-old lady when he eventually gives her the Stone Cold Stunner, and two, how horrible is this stunner going to look? In a very maternal way, Linda McMahon does her best to reason with Stone Cold.
My husband! Why my husband?
Your husband's a piece of trash.
My son Shane.
He's a piece of trash too.
My precious daughter Stephanie.
Precious piece of trash.
Stone Cold is feeling flirty once again and tries to seduce Linda McMahon. Linda acquiesces and agrees to give a kiss on the cheek to Stone Cold, but Stone Cold wants more than that. Stone Cold holds Linda tight and teases a tongue-twisting kiss. Then Stone Cold decides against it and both Linda and Steve drink some beer. Stone Cold then stuns Linda.
Thank you.
Linda sells it horrible as predicted, and Stone Cold leaves a wreckage of McMahon brethren behind in the ring. On the next Raw broadcast, the billion-dollar princess opens the show, and she tells the audience that she has more balls than every man in the arena.
That I have bigger balls than every man in this arena.
She would then go on to slap the timekeeper Mark Eaton and the announcer Lillian Garcia. And 5 minutes later, Vince McMahon is in the ring cutting a promo, and Vince promises that someone will be fired because of Stone Cold's actions against the McMahon family. Vince McMahon turns his attention to the announcers, and the reason being that Coach, King and Jim Ross witnessed the assault on the McMahons and did nothing about it. Wrestling Trope Alert, bullying the announcers to get some heat. Case in point, Taz 5 years earlier at the hands of the heel Stone Cold. The victim of the assault would be Jim Ross as usual. Wrestling trope alert once again, the horrible treatment of the announcer Jim Ross at the hands of the McMahon family is constant and unnecessary.
Get over here and kiss his ass!
Oh my gosh!
But before the assault on Jim Ross, Coach would apologize to Vince McMahon, and the horniest man alive, Jerry the King Lawler, would apologize as well. Because of the on-screen association between Jim Ross and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Jim Ross would have to apologize twice. Ross is then dismissed, but only for about 5 seconds. And now Vince demands an apology for both Shane and Stephanie shows up to slap Jim Ross. Shane is introduced, but Linda McMahon shows up instead, and Vince tells his wife that she looks beautiful. Linda takes the microphone, and Linda tells her husband and daughter to stop this madness. Then Linda says that the only thing that drives respect is taking action, and Linda, on behalf of the McMahon family,
You're fired.
Linda would then low blow Jim Ross, and Raw would go off the air with this horrible segment. Side note, this segment was the result of 2 real-life events. Jim Ross had to take a leave of absence from the WWE to undergo colon surgery, something that the WWE would in bad taste spoof in the Raw broadcast a couple of weeks later. And also, the WWE had been in negotiations with UFC announcer Mike Goldberg to replace Jim Ross at the head of the announce desk. Vince McMahon apparently even went as far as to pay Mike Goldberg to miss a UFC event. But when Mike Goldberg went to his boss Dana White and told him that he was leaving, Dana White offered Mike Goldberg money to stay, and this would screw Vince McMahon's plan to replace good old JR, and the WWE would eventually sign on Joey Styles to the position. On the next Raw broadcast, Vince McMahon would open the show to announce the Taboo Tuesday pay-per-view, dubbed the most interactive event in WWE history. And this pay-per-view's gimmick is fan interaction, and the fans are going to vote on the WWE website to select opponents and stipulations of the match that would be presented. Vince McMahon addresses the rumor of Stone Cold's appearance in this Raw broadcast, and Vince McMahon threatens the Rattlesnake with violence, and the people call Vince an asshole for his treatment of the beloved announcer Jim Ross the week prior. Vince throws in a supposed tribute video package regarding Jim Ross that shows the man getting buried instead of his greatest moments. Vince then introduces a new lead announcer for Raw, Jonathan Coachman, who comes out in the worst Jim Ross cosplay since the Oklahoma character back in WCW. The coach then steals Jim Ross' iconic line,
Business is about to pick up!
and for 15 minutes, Coach would provide color and play-by-play commentary on the Raw broadcast. Then the horniest man alive, Jerry Lawler, joins the commentary desk, and both men would call Raw for the rest of the night. During the Raw broadcast, the WWE would show footage of the parking lot area, anticipating the arrival of the Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. And in the last Raw segment, Stone Cold would finally show up, wreaking havoc in the parking lot area and driving all the way inside the arena in his sweet black pickup truck. Stone Cold cuts a promo on Vince McMahon's actions regarding Jim Ross and calls out Vince McMahon, but his daughter Stephanie shows up instead. Stephanie starts talking and Stone Cold cuts her off.
That's too
You gotta
bad.
shut up. I want to say a few things here.
The Karen look that Stephanie gives to Stone Cold is priceless. Stone Cold channels the spirit of every WWE fan that desperately wishes that Stephanie would shut up once and for all. Stone Cold alludes to Stephanie's declaration of having huge balls.
You said you had a bigger set of balls than anybody here in the damn companies.
And Austin tells Stephanie that Jim Ross didn't have anything to do with his actions against the McMahons. Stone Cold then asks the crowd if Stephanie should receive a spanking.
Put you over my knee, pull your little dress up. Gotta be careful, I don't want your balls to fall out. Give this woman a spanking that she deserves. Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah!
This is where the coach interrupts to defend Vince McMahon's daughter Stephanie. Coach tells Stone Cold that no one wants either Jim Ross or Stone Cold on the Raw broadcast, and Coach tells Stone Cold to leave the arena. Stone Cold cleans his ears and makes his way to Coach. Stephanie stops him, and then Stone Cold imitates Stephanie.
Go Steve Austin, you don't do that right now.
Stephanie's eyes pierce Stone Cold Steve Austin's soul with the strength of 1,000 cannons. Stephanie has a proposition to Stone Cold, and Stone Cold answers in kind.
I've got a proposition for you.
Hell, I might got a 20 on me.
Stephanie gives Stone Cold the opportunity to regain Jim Ross's job, and to do that, Stone Cold Steve Austin has to wrestle the announcer Jonathan Coachman at the Taboo Tuesday pay-per-view. Stone Cold accepts, and Stephanie leaves the ring and avoids a stunner. Stephanie then tells Stone Cold that he will be fired if he loses the match, and Stone Cold would then give the finger to Stephanie McMahon. Stone Cold walks over to Coach, Stone Cold undresses Coach and offers him a free shot. Stone Cold then takes Coach's cowboy hat, fills the hat with beer, and Stone Cold puts the hat on Coach, drenching Coach in alcohol. And this would be the last appearance of Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE until the return of Saturday night's main event later on the March 18, 2006, almost 6 months later. At Taboo Tuesday, the idea was for Stone Cold Steve Austin to come out of retirement and wrestle for Jim Ross' reinstatement. But because Vince McMahon wanted to replace Jim Ross at the head of the announce desk as previously mentioned, the WWE booked themselves into a corner.
Life sucks, and then you die.
And Stone Cold couldn't win that match, or else Jim Ross would have to return. Vince McMahon wanted Stone Cold to lose the Taboo Tuesday match against the lowly announcer Jonathan Coachman. And this did not sit well with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold is not the type of wrestler to never want to lose a match, but Stone Cold puts the foot down on creative's ideas when losing affects his brand or his value. And this wasn't the first time this happened either. Stone Cold had famously walked out on the WWE years prior because he was asked to lose to newcomer Brock Lesnar in a throwaway match on the Raw broadcast. And with all this backstage drama happening, this is where the story went off the rails and turned into a ridiculous mess all the way to the pay-per-view. Sadly, the WWE would continue to falsely advertise the appearance of Stone Cold, and on the following Raw broadcast, Coach would talk about the events of the preceding week. Jerry the King Lawler then picks up the microphone and asks the crowd if they enjoyed Coach's embarrassment the last week, and King announces the choices that people have as stipulations for the Stone Cold and Coach match at Taboo Tuesday.
You have three choices: arm wrestling match, a verbal debate, good old-fashioned street fight.
Coach then decides to call out Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold's music plays, a black pickup drives up to the arena, and Stephanie McMahon would rise through the sunroof of the pickup truck, disappointing everyone in a 5,000-mile radius. Then Stephanie heads to the ring, and Coach and Stephanie proceed to bore the audience for a long time. And Stephanie tells the audience that Stone Cold will not be present in this Raw broadcast, and Coach dares Stone Cold to appear at the following Raw broadcast. The next edition of Raw would be Halloween themed. Coach would now be cosplaying as Stone Cold Steve Austin with a redneck included. And 30 minutes later, in the middle of the broadcast, Coach would get in the ring to call out the rattlesnake, and Coach would introduce the first of two random wrestlers that would be joining this clusterfuck of a storyline. Goldust, because logic. Goldust had last been seen 2 years earlier teaming with Lance Storm against Mark Henry and Rodney Mack on the Raw broadcast. Goldust would make his entrance and the audience would be largely uninterested. Coach would again challenge Stone Cold and Vince McMahon's music would play, and Vince tells the audience that Stone Cold was in some kind of accident and Stone Cold would not be appearing for either Raw or Taboo Tuesday.
All we know is Austin's not going to make Taboo Tuesday. Austin was involved in some sort of accident over this past weekend. I don't know whether it's valid or whether or not, Coach, he's just plain afraid of you.
And then Vince McMahon says that he promised the coach match on Taboo Tuesday and intends to deliver.
I did promise everyone that you would compete at Taboo Tuesday.
The people wanted to see Stone Cold wrestle, not the announcer Jonathan Coachman. Vince McMahon then introduces SmackDown's #1 jobber Funaki to wrestle Jonathan Coachman. Coach pushes Funaki, Goldust big boots and punches Funaki, Goldust then picks up Funaki and delivers his finishing move, and out of the ring flying goes Funaki. Coach then challenges someone on the SmackDown roster because of reasons. Wrestling trope alert, wrestler in the ring challenging someone on the roster only for the worst ever option to appear. The animal Batista would show up, and it seems that Batista is not very happy to be part of this storyline. Batista walks in the ring, smiles at Coach, and Batista would get punched by Coach. Batista goes for Coach, Goldust rushes Batista, and Vader... Yes, Vader, the second random wrestler to join this horrible storyline, would make his return to the WWE. Vader was last seen 8 years prior in a losing match against Mark Marrow back in 1998. Vader would attack Batista and Vader would hold Batista for Coach to slap. Vader would give a vicious strike to Batista's back and the World Heavyweight Champion Batista would be left in the ring smiling and selling the beating he just received. The only reason for the match at Taboo Tuesday was for Stone Cold to regain Jim Ross's reinstatement, and Batista would now wrestle Coach because logic. Ahead of the match between Coach and Batista, Coach would be in a backstage segment with his cohorts Vader and Goldust, and Coach hopes that his future victory over Batista will lead him to become a WWE champion. 5 minutes later, Lillian Garcia would announce the match and show the stipulations for the match.
Verbal debate, an arm wrestling contest, or a street fight.
Goldust is introduced, Vader follows, Coach is next, and before Batista comes out, the results of the fan vote are revealed, and the people have chosen a street fight to no one's surprise. Coach is in the ring cowering behind Goldust and Vader, and the animal Dave Batista would make his entrance, proudly displaying his World Heavyweight Championship. Batista enters the ring, and this match would be a de facto handicap match, with the lazy excuse of street fights not having disqualification. Vader and Goldust would be in the ring fighting Batista, and Coach would be outside watching the violence. Batista would manage to take out the heels regroup on the outside, Goldust and Vader get back in the ring and attempt once again to take down the champion. The champion is now overpowered for a while, Batista manages to take out Goldust and drag Vader to the corner. Spear on Goldust, Coach attempts to strike Batista from behind, but gets punched in the face for his troubles. And as Batista is attempting a suplex on Vader, Goldust strikes Batista in the back with some vicious candlestick strikes. Coach steals the timekeeper's Mark Eaton's belt, and as Vader and Goldust hold the champion Batista, Goldust strikes Batista's back with some vicious belt strikes. Batista would gather enough strength to counter the heels, and Batista would then clothesline the 3 heels, and Batista would grab the belt and repay the heels in kind. Spinebuster on Vader, a huge slap on Coach, Batista bomb on Coach with authority, pinfall for the win, and Batista wins this match and puts an end to this awful story. Thank you for watching this trip down memory lane regarding this horrible Stone Cold, Coach and Batista storyline. Leave your comments, suggestions, ideas or constructive criticism in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to press that like button and also subscribe for more future content just like this, or better. This has been fun, thank you for watching.